نحمده ونصلي ونسلم على رسوله الكريم أما بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ولقد ذرأنا لجهنم كثيرا من الجن والإنس لهم قلوب لا يفقهون بها ولهم أعين لا يبصرون بها ولهم آذان لا يسمعون بها أولئك كالأنعام بل هم أضل أولئك هم الغافلون بارك الله لي ولكم في القرآن العظيم ونفعني وإياكم بالآيات والذكر الحكيم واستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المؤمنين استغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي رب يسر ولا تعسر وتمم بالخير وبك نستعين يا فتاح يا فتاح يا فتاح صدق الله العظيم وصدق رسوله النبي الكريم الأمين السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Alhamdulillah, it's a great blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He has given me and you the ability and tawfiq to participate in this gathering. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make this gathering a source of guidance for all of us, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make this gathering a means of our entry to Jannah. Recently I was asked a question, and that question got me thinking. And I think, and then finally Allah reminded me that I have actually already answered that question. And not me, Allah has already answered that question. And the question was, one of my non-Muslim friends, he asked me this question, and maybe some of you, if not now, eventually, if you try to talk to them about Islam, may ask you this question, that if Allah already knew that the only believers are going to go into Jannah, only Muslims are going to go into Jannah, then why did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make Christians, Jews, Hindus, Buddhists, all these are the people who follow different religions, even atheists, agnostics? What Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created so many different kinds of people? If only the believers are going to go, and even among the believers, only the practicing ones are going to go into Jannah, right? That's how we believe. So all of these people who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah just created them so that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can throw them in Jahannam. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is so keen to fill Jahannam with people that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala only created, let's just say, 1.7 billion Muslims. And the rest of the people, the rest 6.7, I think the entire mankind nowadays, the number is 8 billion, around 8 billion. So the remaining ones, they all are going to go, even among 1.7 billions, not everyone is guaranteed to go into Jannah, but let's just say 1.7 billions, they are going to go into Jannah. But the rest of the people, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is so keen that Allah made majority of the people so that they can go into Jahannam. Did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala really want to put us? And what is our fault if I'm born with a certain religion? If I'm born in a Christian house, if I'm born in a Jewish house, if I'm born in a Hindu house, in a Buddhist house, I did not choose that religion for me. My parents chose that religion for me. I was born with that religion. So why am I to blame? Why would Allah put me in Jahannam? What's the reason behind it? There is a long discussion about Qadr, about destiny. I've done it in one of my Jummas. If you guys are really interested to know about Qadr and destiny, and why, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has decided everything, why would we be blamed for that? If you really want to know that, I have it in my mobile phone, so I can forward it to you, inshallah, if you need to hear about it. So that's another thing. That's a different issue. I'm not going to discuss that issue. What I'm going to discuss today is that, did Allah really create human beings so that they can go to Jahannam? Is that the reason why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created? Allah's main goal is to create us and then throw us in Jahannam. And I'm going to share some reflections with you, mainly from this ayah of Surah Al-A'raf, which is verse number 179, I think. I'm getting blind, so please forgive me if I say it wrong. I think it's 179. Yeah, it is 179. And you know what I was thinking, and please don't take it in the wrong way. What I was thinking is that, mashallah, all of you brothers, you make time, you come here, we sit down together, we listen and we hear something from the Sunnah of Rasulullah or from the Quran and different kind of things. But I'm the only one who's making effort here. You guys are not making any effort on your part. Other than the fact that, mashallah, you come here. Alhamdulillah, may Allah reward you for that. So what I decided to do, especially for Hasib Bhai, because Hasib Bhai's wife keep telling me that you have to do some classes for the men, you have to do some classes for the men. So what I've decided to encourage all of you to do is that the verse that we are going to understand today, you will go back home, you memorize this verse, and at least once in your salah you recite that verse and try to reflect on it. Do we agree with that? Don't worry, I'm not going to test you. I test the kids I teach every day, but I'm not going to test you next week. But please memorize this verse. It's not a difficult verse. how many lines? I think it consists of 4 lines. But inshallah, if you memorize it and you read it every single day, it will become a part of your life and you will remember it inshallah very easily. So the chapter is 7. Those of you who have mobile phones, you can easily Google it. Chapter 7, verse number 179. Chapter 7, verse number 179. But before I talk about this verse, I want to tell you something else. In Surah Al-Mu'minun, there is a surah called Surah Al-Mu'minun. In that surah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells that the believers are going to inherit Jannah. Ula'ika humul warithun. Believers are the ones who are going to inherit Jannah. Now you tell me, mashallah, you people are smarter than I am. When you think of inheritance, what comes into your mind? Something that is left behind for you. It's already in your name. You don't have to make effort to acquire it. When the time will come, it will come to you automatically. You don't have to do anything on your own to actually get it, right? That's what inheritance means. So I started thinking to myself, if Jannah, we are going to get Jannah in inheritance, that means Jannah is already in our name. So we don't really have to make any effort to get to Jannah, because we're going to get Jannah in inheritance.
If you're a believer.
Yeah, if you're a believer, yeah. So believer means that you believe in Allah and you believe in Rasulullah.
Not only believing it.
Yeah, you believe in it. So you gotta, but inheritance means that you don't have to make effort for it. It's gonna come to you anyway because you believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So why is it like this? Why are we getting Jannah as inheritance? And why are we not getting Jannah? Because we do something in this world, that's why we deserve Jannah in the hereafter. So I come across a hadith, a saying of Rasulullah, which is a beautiful hadith. A saying of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in which he said and he explained, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created a home in Jannah for every single human being that was ever created. Allah created a home for him in Jannah. It's an authentic narration. Allah, you will find in Sahih al-Bukhari, Allah created a home for every single human being ever created in Jannah. Now obviously we all know not everyone is going to go to Jannah. So when the believers, the firm believers, when they will go into Jannah, they're going to go into their homes. And when they will go into their homes, they will see some homes right next to their homes that are empty. Because these homes were made for the people who refuse to go to Jannah. They don't want to go to Jannah. So they are not going to be taking over their homes. So their homes, the believers who get to Jannah, they will inherit now their homes. It's not like you are going to inherit all of the homes in Jannah. You are going to inherit the homes in Jannah of the people who are not ready to take over their own homes in Jannah. Do you guys understand the thing here? So the people who will not get to Jannah, who are not willing to go to Jannah, obviously, they don't believe in Allah, or even if they believe in Allah, they are not willing to practice Islam. They don't get to Jannah, which means that they are not really interested in getting their homes in Jannah and taking over their homes. So their homes are empty. So the believers who will get to their Jannah, they will get those homes in inheritance. But first you have to make an effort to get into your Jannah. Then you get some homes in inheritance. You guys understand that? Now you may think that, if Allah created homes for every single person in Jannah, they must be in the lowest level of Jannah. Yeah, they are in Jannah, but they must be in the lowest. Because every single person is going to Jannah. They can't be in the highest level of Jannah, right? They can't be in the highest level of Jannah. Listen to the next part of the ayah. أُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْوَارِثُونَ الَّذِينَ يَرِثُونَ Firdaus is the highest level of Jannah. Highest level. So originally when Allah created homes for every single human being, Allah made it in the highest level of Jannah. So now you tell me, did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala really want to throw us in the fire of Jahannam? Did Allah really want? If Allah created a home for every single human being, not only in Jannatul Firdaus, why would Allah want to throw us in Jahannam? Now look at this ayah, the ayah that I want you to memorize, the ayah I want you to understand today. This ayah is again chapter number 7, verse number 175. This ayah, if you just look at the translation of this ayah, that's why it's important to understand the tafsir of the ayat. Translation is good, but when it comes to these ayat, then you have to understand a little bit of more explanation. When you look at this ayah, it seems to suggest something that is opposite to we just understood. Because this ayah starts with وَلَقَدْ ذَرَأْنَا لِجَهَنَّمَ كَثِيرًا مِنَ الْجِنِّ وَالْإِنسِ. We have created many human beings and jinn for Jahannam. Allah is saying we have created many human beings and jinns for Jahannam. And this is exactly the opposite that we just understood. Now I have a problem with this translation 4, and that's what happens when you translate things like that. 4. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran has already told us in many places why Allah created me and you. One of the reasons we know and we all know by heart, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. Allah created us so that we can worship Him. I'm not even talking about that reason. I'm not even talking about that purpose of creation. There is another purpose of our creation. And Allah says, إِلَّا مَنْ رَحِمَ رَبُّكَ وَلِذَلِكَ خَلَقَهُمْ. I want to show you my mercy. That's why I've created you. That's the only reason why that's the only purpose why Allah created us. So that He can show us His mercy. That's the reason. So Allah's main goal is to create us and then to show us His mercy. And obviously if He shows us His mercy, then we get to Jannah. So Allah created us, Allah made us a home in Jannah. Allah's goal is not to create us and throw us into the fire of Jahannam. But how can we translate this ayah then? Because the ayah completely says, the ayah explicitly says, we have created many human beings and jinn for Jahannam. How should we translate that? I'm not going to say anything, by the way. Salam az-Zamakhshari rahmatullah alayh. I have no authority on the Quran. He says the li word here, وَلَقَدْ ذَرَأْنَا لِجَهَنَّمَ. The word li here is in the ma'na, is in the meaning of ilah. Ilah. Now the translation is talking about tragedy now. We have created human beings and jinn. Ila Jahannama. Why are they walking towards Jahannam? Why are they heading towards Jahannam? What's the reason behind it? Why would they do something like this? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mentioning a tragedy here. I've created you, and now you all are heading, or many of you are heading towards Jahannam. And then Allah explained. Allah in the next part of the ayah, Allah explained. Lahum qulubun la yafqahun. Not only I've created you, I've given you hearts. La yafqahuna biha, but you don't think with your hearts. We'll talk about that later. You don't think with your heart. See, here Allah does not say that your hearts are locked, your hearts are sealed, that's why you're going into Jahannam, or you are heartless people, that's why you're going into Jahannam. Allah didn't say that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about a tragedy. I've created you, I've given you your hearts, why are you not using them properly? Why are you going towards Jahannam? وَلَهُمْ أَعْيُنٌ لَا يُبْصِرُونَ بِهَا. I've given you eyes, but you're not seeing with your eyes. وَلَهُمْ آذَانٌ لَا يَسْمَعُونَ بِهَا. You have ears, but you don't hear with them. So you have. And the fact that you have means that you are capable of using them to get to Jannah. You have these things, you can use them to get to Jannah. You have a straight road to Jannah. In another place in the Quran, in Surah Al-Isra, Allah says, وَجَعَلْنَا لَكُمْ سَمْعًا وَأَبْصَارًا وَأَفْئِدَةً. I've given you seeing, I've given you hearing, I've given you strong hearts. I've given you all of these tools. Use them and get to Jannah. If you use them, inshallah, you have a straight road, you have a road straight to Jannah. But if you don't use them properly, then you have only yourself to blame. I have given you all the tools. You are not using them properly. It's just like you have a car, but you don't drive it. Now you cannot blame anybody else. There was a car, it was filled with gas and with everything, or with petrol and everything. You even have directions with you, but you never use the car. Whose fault is it? It's your fault. So Allah is talking about a tragedy here. But there is one thing that I want to highlight and then I'm done, inshallah. This one thing. Allah says, I have given them hearts, but they don't think with their hearts. When we talk about thinking, what comes in our mind? I even use the word mind here. Brain thinks. Heart doesn't think. Normally. Brain thinks. Heart doesn't think. Why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, why are you not thinking with your hearts? First of all, you need to understand that when Allah talks about His verses, when Allah talks about His miracles, when Allah talks about His faith, Allah says all of these things lies where? You believe in your heart, not here. And obviously, after you believe in your heart, you use this to find a rational reason behind it, logical reason. But first, it comes in your heart. It lies in your, it affects you on an emotional level before it affects you on a rational level. It affects you on an emotional level. So let's try to understand why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying you don't think with your heart. I'm going to give you some practical examples. Alhamdulillah, I've learned from my teacher while reading this, while understanding this ayah. I'm walking down a street and I see a tree. Maybe I'm walking down a street, maybe, and by the way, this is from Dr. Irshad Ahmed. Probably you have heard of his name, Dr. Irshad Ahmed. So I've got a chance to be in his company, alhamdulillah. I've learned a few things from him. So you're walking down a street and you see that tree. And maybe, you're walking down with a person who is a geologist, who is a botanist, who studies a lot of plants, who knows about plants. And he looks at the tree and he can tell you a lot of stuff about the plants. He can tell you about different kinds of species of the trees. He can tell you what kind of tree is that, for how long it's been alive, is it about to die or not. He can tell you, for example, what is the best environment to grow. He can tell you a lot of these kinds of stuff, right? But when I look at that tree, the only thing I'm reminded of is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brings life out of dead. I don't know anything about the plants. I don't know anything about the stuff. But when I look at the tree, I understand and realize that Allah can bring life out of death. I'm reminded of my mortality. That one day I will die and Allah will bring life out of me, because that tree was a seed at one time, used to be a seed at one time. Right? You can walk down, you can look at the sky, and a scientist can look at the sky and can tell you a lot of things about universe and about stars and about planetary system. I look at the sky and I just find humility. I look at the sky and I'm reminded of the ayah, مَا تَرَى مِنْ خَلْقِ الرَّحْمَنِ مِنْ تَفَاوُتٍ. Can you see any cracks there? Up there. I've made a sky for you. Can you see any cracks up there? I'm reminded of that. That's what it means, thinking with your heart. You look at the things with your heart first, with your brain as well. You look at the things with your heart. And if you look at the things that are around you, see, it's your choice. You can look at them from a scientific point of view, from a skeptic point of view. It's just a scenery passing by and you don't even look at it, you don't even pay attention to it. But if you start looking at the things around you with your heart and you start reflecting, you will see things that other people cannot see. And it is happening. Why? Because you're not only thinking with your brain, you're thinking with your heart. I'll give you another example, a funny example. We are going down the highway or motorway, whatever you want to call it. In Pakistan, we call it motorway. So we're going down a motorway, me and some madrasa students, college students, university students, so we're going to Islamabad to attend a function in International Islamic University, and we're going there. And a bunch of guys, they're driving. By the way, Quran's claim is, if you think with your heart and if you reflect, everything around you can become a sign, can become an ayah, a verse. It can become a spiritual, everything physical around you can turn into a spiritual reminder. It becomes a verse for you. It becomes a nishani for you, a sign of Allah from you. Sorry, a sign from Allah. So these guys, obviously, they are speeding. And they're going like 90 miles an hour. In here, I think 90 miles is okay, but in Pakistan, it's a big deal. So they're going like 90 miles an hour. And before I told them to slow down, I was just immediately reminded of the fact that Allah says in the Quran, بَلْ تُحِبُّونَ الْعَاجِلَةَ, that we human beings, we have this inherent urge to speed. They are cutting people off, they're enjoying and they're talking, and they're getting this kick out of speed. I immediately remember, كَلَّا بَلْ تُحِبُّونَ الْعَاجِلَةَ. Insan likes to rush. He gets a kick out of speeding. And that's a reminder. You look out while you're traveling. You can do it yourself. Sometimes when you're traveling, you look out of the window, mashallah. It's a beautiful scene. Here we have seen many times. It's a beautiful scene, but sometimes you see the cow is grazing. And a car goes by it, whisks by it. And any other animal, if a car goes by it, if a sharp object or a speedy object goes by it, it shows some kind of reflection, right? It shows some kind of reaction. It reflexes, right? But you're going into your car and you go by that cow, your car goes by that cow, and it doesn't react. It just keeps on doing what it's doing. Our car whisks by it, just 2-3 feet away from it. It is right at the edge of the road. This happens in Pakistan, by the way. It's right at the edge of the road, eating grass, don't care about anything. And we go by it, our car whisks by it. We can literally see its fur like this. We literally see the wind on its fur. It doesn't care. It continues to graze, it continues to move. It doesn't care. And in the Quran, when Allah talk about heedless people, on which these ayat has no effect, Allah compares them with cattle. أُولَٰئِكَ كَالْأَنْعَامِ. They are like cattle, but بَلْ هُمْ أَضَلُّ. They are actually more lost than cattle. The people who are heedless people, who don't take lessons out of the ayat of the Quran, who don't take lessons out of the reminders from the Quran. Allah could have compared them with any animals. Birds, when any sharp object goes by, they fly off. Lizards go back to their holes. Other animals show reflexes. The cow doesn't show any kind of reaction. A cattle doesn't show any kind of reaction. So Allah compares them with what? A cattle. We are going and we are driving and we see this billboard, and it's a billboard of buying a house, and there is a house and a family standing in front of the house and they are hugging each other and they are smiling. You look at the board and you're just reminded of an ayah, إِنَّهُ كَانَ فِي أَهْلِهِ مَسْرُورًا. Insan, a human being, is really happy when he is with his family. وَمَسَاكِنُ تَرْضَوْنَهَا. a human being really loves his house, his family and his house. Like Allah knows us so well. You know, if you look around us, if you look at the world around you and you think with your heart and if you reflect, every single thing will become a sign. Every single thing will become an ayah for you. There's nothing in this world that will not become an ayah. That's why Allah says, think with your heart. Think with your heart. You know, I have a friend that I mentioned him a lot of times. His name is Davide, and he just finished his PhD in Exeter. We studied here together. He was a Christian, mashallah, became Muslim. You meet him, you hear him reading Quran. He became Muslim 8-9 years ago. When we met, he just became Muslim. Italian friend. And mashallah, if you hear him reading Quran, if you hear him talking about Islam, Allah has given him something really special. He's so intelligent. I consider him a mentor. I learned so much from him. So even in Dundee, we were studying together. We walked down the street and, you know, we saw a blade of grass coming out of two plates, concrete plates, you know, two concrete plates, and there was a blade of grass coming out of it. And, you know, he just stopped and started looking at it. And I said, why are you looking at it? And he said, you know, of all the things that is surrounding us, everything that is surrounding us, this is the only thing that is natural. But at the same time, this is the only thing that looks out of place. It's natural, the blade of grass. It's natural, it's beautiful, but it looks out of place. And he said, it's just like us Muslims and Islam. Islam is the only religion, because he knows Islam. We don't know Islam, we were born Muslims. He knows Islam. He says Islam is the only religion of tabi'iyah. It's the only religion of fitrah, of nature. Its teachings, its books, every single thing, it's about nature. It's about practicality. It's what you feel, how you feel, and how you should apply the rules of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It understands your nature. But still we have come to a point in this world where everyone looks at someone who are out of place. Every single person or everyone around us in this world look at us as we are out of place. Even though we are natural people. We are natural people. SubhanAllah, I don't know how to explain that. If somebody can, you know, reflect so deeply. You know, but if you can do that, if I can manage to do that, if you can manage to do that, wallahi, every single thing will become a reminder. Every single thing will become a reminder. And it's something that we have to engage in. You have to engage in reflection and I have to engage in reflection, inshallah. When you do that exercise, your eyes, your ears, your heart, they will become something else. They will teach you something else. You will be able to see with these eyes, you will be able to hear with these ears, you will be able to feel with this heart that other people cannot see or hear or feel. Inshallah, if you start doing that. That's why Allah said, Lahum qulubul la. I've given them hearts, they don't think with them. I've given them eyes, they don't see with them. I've given them ears, they don't hear with them. So Allah is talking about a tragedy. I've given them so much, still they are heading towards Jannah. So that's a tragedy that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about. So anyone who tells you that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us so that He can throw us into Jannah, give that ayah to him. Give that ayah to him, inshallah, and he will understand, inshallah. Are we ready for this, inshallah? Memorize this ayah. Verse number 179, I remember. Verse 79, chapter number 8. 7. Surah Al-Araf. Chapter number 7. Verse number, inshallah. Memorize it, read it in good ayah. Try to reflect what this says, inshallah. And try to share it with other people, inshallah. Try to share it with the rest of the people, inshallah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant some. Subhanallah.